Tonight, the Iowa caucuses, the results are in. Donald Trump, also the crucial race for second place. Also tonight, the deadly winter storm across several states. New York City and the East now bracing tonight. What's coming this evening and for tomorrow morning's commute? First, the big chill in Iowa tonight. Record wind chills as low as 30 degrees below zero. Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, all urging voters to brave the record cold and to caucus for them. Donald Trump coming into tonight with a nearly 30-point lead. What does this mean? And why the second place finish tonight could be make or break for the others. Rachel Scott and our team across Iowa, Rick Klein, right here at the big board. The new storm and the life-threatening cold now sweeping across the U.S. 200 million Americans under winter weather alerts from Montana down to Florida, all the way up to the Northeast. The storm deadly across several states, and the snowstorm tonight for the East. Washington, D.C., up through Philadelphia and New York City. Rob Marciano timing it out. The urgent search for two missing U.S. Navy SEALs lost at sea during a daring mission. 100 days now since the Hamas terror attack in Israel, igniting the larger war. Tonight, Hamas releasing new images showing 3 of the hostages still in captivity. Matt Gutman in Israel. There is news tonight on Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. In New York City, the major news coming in the case of the accused Long Island serial killer and what could now be a new turn in this case. The deadly hot air balloon crash, 4 people killed, including a young nurse. The new Miss America making history, the first active duty Air Force officer to win the crown. And a day of service. Tonight, Martin Luther King Jr., in his own words, on what would have been his 95th birthday.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to start another week with all of you at home. It is a frigid night across the country. We're glad you're indoors with us. We do begin tonight with the first major test in the race for the White House. Whether Americans are ready or not for this, it's here. The Iowa caucuses, wind chills 25 to 30 below zero. But Iowa voters turned out, and the results are in tonight. Rachel Scott leading us off.
Tonight, Iowans braving the coldest caucus night in history, turning out for Donald Trump, who ABC News projects has won the nation's first contest of the Republican primary.
I just want to say it's been an honor to be with you.
Trump himself showing up at a caucus site while his rivals had spent months crisscrossing the state. The frontrunner Trump only holding one scheduled event this final week.
Mr. President, you've campaigned here far less than your rivals. Will that cost you today?
We're going to have a great night and fantastic place. The people are fantastic, and I've never seen spirit like they have countrywide. But in Iowa, I've never seen spirit.
Are you?
The big question: would his supporters show up in sub-zero temperatures? Kathy and Ralph Fenton from Indianola told us nothing could keep them away.
We'd walk through broken glass to see Trump.
You would?
Yep.
And the caucus for him too?
Yes.
Yep.
But other Iowa voters like Dan Hobson have soured on the former president.
I voted for him in his first run and decided I didn't like what I got. So I don't like his policies. I don't like the way he treats people and treats other countries.
Tonight, the battle's still on for second place here.
Happy Caucus Day. We are so excited. It is finally go time.
Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley was gaining momentum in the final days. Ariva Pilgrim with her and Adele.
You said you were going to have a strong showing here in Iowa. What does that mean?
We won't know until we see what the numbers look like. You know, we want to have strong so that it can catapult us into New Hampshire. We expect it to be a 2-person race in New Hampshire.
The candidate with the most at stake, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Are you ready to brave the cold to make your voice heard tonight?
DeSantis staking his entire campaign on Iowa, holding more events here than Haley and Trump combined.
We went out to earn your vote. I went to all 99 counties. We answered questions. We showed up to debates.
One thing he didn't do, aggressively take on the frontrunner. DeSantis conceding Trump's indictments helped the former president. Arwitt Johnson pressing the governor, should he have hit Trump harder?
Do you think that has held back your campaign or hurt you in any way?
We started off the first week or two very strong. We were getting good media. Then he got indicted in Florida with that, and that wiped everything else off the screen. And then he got indicted again in D.C. and then again in Atlanta, and so that just subsumed, I think, the whole process at that point.
And David, once again, Donald Trump looks to be dominating tonight. Remember, he lost the state back in 2016. He had virtually no campaign operation here on the ground. This time, a different story. The former president has built out a robust campaign, even making personal phone calls to supporters today. The former president hoping that a decisive victory will send a message to his rivals that this is his nomination for the taking. David.
Rachel Scott leading us off. Rachel, thank you. Let's get right to Eva Pilgrim at Nikki Haley's headquarters. And Eva, all eyes on the race for second now tonight between Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and whether Haley can really capitalize on any recent momentum.
Yeah, David, Nikki Haley expects to have a strong showing here tonight, telling me she thinks it's going to be a two-man race once we get to New Hampshire. She spent a lot of time in New Hampshire, has the support of the state's popular governor, Chris Sununu. Here in Iowa, she doesn't have the same ground organization as her rivals, but she's counting on that last-minute game momentum to propel her into second place, and she'll need that boost as she goes forward.
You'll be watching closely for us, Eva Pilgrim. Our thanks to you as well. Let's get right to Whit Johnson tonight. And Whit, Governor Ron DeSantis spending so much time in Iowa, as we mentioned, traveling to all 99 counties. Is this really a make-or-break moment for him, a make-or-break evening, given how well he does?
David, it is. The DeSantis campaign thinks they have a major advantage when it comes to the ground game, especially in actually getting people to these caucus locations in sub-zero temperatures. DeSantis himself has been to 99 locations across the state. Staffers tell us they've actually identified precinct captains with trucks, SUVs, and four-wheel drive. They're bringing shovels and ice melt, actually going to dig people out, literally transport known DeSantis supporters directly to these caucus locations, and that includes seniors from retirement homes. DeSantis told me today he likes being the underdog, but he knows he needs a strong finish here in Iowa to move forward in this race. David?
Can't believe we're here already, but we are. Whit Johnson, our thanks to you as well. Before we move on here, a quick check on the numbers that put this in perspective tonight. The polling on the eve of these Iowa caucuses. Let's get right to our political director, Rick Klein. He's over at the big board tonight. Rick, you're back at the big board. Hard to believe. But it's not just the polling, but it's also what you see inside the polling when it comes to enthusiasm.
Yeah, and this is the last glimpse that we're getting before the caucus actually begins tonight. Donald Trump not just dominating, but getting close to an outright majority of caucus goers. That would be some feat. And second place, Nikki Haley has surged past Ron DeSantis, and that is going to be a dogfight to watch tonight. And yes, to the enthusiasm question, this same poll asked people how enthusiastic they were. Almost 90%, 88% of Donald Trump supporters say they're enthusiastic tonight. That is only 39% of Nikki Haley supporters. So if this is a battle on the ground to get people to show up, this is Donald Trump's night to lose. And when you look at where in the state people have to perform, I'm going to have my eyes tonight right here in the Des Moines area. That is where Nikki Haley has to run up the numbers. Also out in eastern Iowa by the University of Iowa, those are the places that she has to overperform. Those suburban voters, those urban voters that might say we're not ready for Donald Trump.
She needs to turn out in the suburbs for sure. And real quick, if Donald Trump were to do as well as the poll says he would, that would be historic.
David, no one in the history of the Iowa caucuses has won in a contested situation on the Republican side by more than 13 points. Donald Trump could double that up, blow the record away, and send a major statement at the start of the voting.
I'll see you a little later this evening. Rick Klein, thank you so much. And stay with ABC News, our digital channel as well. ABC News Live all night long. As soon as results come in, we'll also be on during the football game tonight when the results come in as well. Our streaming begins on ABC News Live right here after the news tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. Meantime, you saw the brutal cold in Iowa. This is really across the country. In fact, 200 million Americans are on alert tonight for dangerous cold and a new storm now targeting the Northeast. Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, right up through New York City. That snowstorm first in Texas and the Deep South, then, of course, D.C. and up into the city. Manhattan could get its first snow in more than 700 days now. In Buffalo, crews clearing the field of blizzard-driven snow, but fans were still pitching in, racing to clear the seats before today's rescheduled game there. Heavy snow and whiteout conditions in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Look at this, a state of emergency in Shelby County, Tennessee. AccuWeather video of I-40 there, almost no traffic from Memphis all the way to Nashville. Rob Marciano standing by with the forecast, but first, Alex Perez tonight from Chicago.
Tonight, white-knuckle driving across the South. Drivers struggling to stay on the road in snow, sleet, and ice. AccuWeather storm chaser Reed Timmer on Interstate 40 in Nashville.
Our road crews are trying to keep up with the rates, but it's just impossible down here in the South because the infrastructure doesn't really support it.
This is the accident that started the whole thing off this morning.
West of Houston, icy overpasses and multiple morning crashes forcing authorities to close Interstate 10 in both directions. With temperatures feeling like the teens across Texas, energy officials worried about blackouts, begging residents to conserve conserve power. As that system heads to the northeast, bone-chilling cold fueling lake-effect blizzards around Buffalo, up to 3 inches an hour at one point, forcing officials to issue a ban on all travel. Here's what it looked like on the field this weekend when officials made the call to move the Bills game to today. An army of volunteers racing to clear the snow from the stands earlier today.
And David, many schools across the region have already announced they will be closed tomorrow. The feel-like temperature in Chicago tomorrow expected to be about 30 below zero. David?
Braving the cold for us, Alex Perez, we appreciate it. Let's get right to senior meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all for us again tonight. Also out there again tonight. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. Yeah, that kind of cold give you frostbite in 10 minutes. So the school bus stop, the walk to school, just way too dangerous. And that cold is expansive. Look at this. Chills, wind chill alerts all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. We got winter storm warnings at the edges of this thing. But in the morning, as Alex pointed out, we're going to see minus 13 in St. Louis, minus 25 in Kansas City. You can't get out of it. With the leading edge of that cold, that's where the snow is. It is finally east of Nashville, reaching over the mountains into D.C. It's going to be there for a while, then up I-95 into New York City by daybreak, increasing then, and it's a quick mover, so it should be out of here by sometime tomorrow night, but it is cold, so it is all snow this time. So 1 to 2 near the coast, 2 to 5 along I-95 and inland, and I think you're right. That snowless streak here in Manhattan will likely be broken tomorrow.
Yeah, could soon be over. All right, Rob Marciano, we appreciate it. Good to see you on a Monday. Overseas tonight, the urgent search for 2 U.S. Navy SEALs lost at sea during a daring mission off Somalia. Officials say the elite team was boarding a boat suspected of carrying Iranian weapons to Yemen when one of the SEALs was knocked into the rough waters. Another Navy SEAL dove in trying to make a rescue, both of them now missing. Officials say the team then continued with that mission, seizing ballistic and cruise missiles on board. Meantime, the search continues. Now, 100 days since the Hamas terror attack and then the war, tonight Hamas releasing video of 3 of the hostages still in captivity. ABC's Matt Gutman in Israel.
After 100 days of war, tonight Hamas releasing new videos showing these 3 hostages. ABC News not showing the hostage videos themselves at the request of the families. Noah Argamani, Yossi Sharabi, Itai Svirsky, just 3 of the more than 100 hostages still held captive in Gaza. Argamani, and that look of terror as she was ripped from her boyfriend and loaded onto this motorcycle, became the face of those taken from the Nova Music Festival. She pleads in this video, "Don't kill me." Over the weekend in Tel Aviv, thousands demanding the hostages return. Among them, Argamani's mother, stricken with cancer, begging to see her daughter again before she dies. And in Israel today, this ramming attack outside Tel Aviv, police say 2 Palestinian men claiming to be enraged by the destruction in Gaza, carjacking vehicles and ramming them into civilians. A 79-year-old woman was killed, 17 others injured. That vehicle went slaloming through the streets here, ramming into pedestrians and other cars, causing massive damage here and, of course, killing that woman. You can see the front end of this car is completely destroyed here. In Gaza, this video circulating online showing the apocalyptic desperation. Thousands swarming aid trucks carrying flour to northern Gaza. Then shots ring out and the hungry scatter. UN organizations estimate that about a quarter of Gaza's population is experiencing catastrophic hunger and expect malnutrition and deaths to follow.
And David, more than 100 days into this war, Israel's defense minister going on national television saying that it should be Palestinian officials who govern Gaza when the fighting is over, not an Israeli occupation. David.
100 days in. Matt Gutman in Israel again tonight. Matt, thank you. Meantime, back in the U.S. tonight and with the Iowa caucuses this evening, the White House keenly aware of the stakes and who's leading on the Republican side going into Iowa. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris was in the crucial state of South Carolina, delivering the keynote address at an event honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, one-on-one with the vice president, asking about the potential they'll be running against Donald Trump again, and about what Governor Nikki Haley has been arguing about President Biden.
Iowa, big day. The first Republican votes are being cast.
It's a big day.
Tonight, the White House with an eye on Iowa. Vice President Kamala Harris telling me they're ready to take on whomever emerges the winner. So are your concerns the same no matter who the Republican candidate is, the Republican nominee?
Well, let me just tell you this. No matter who the Republican nominee is, we're winning. We're winning.
You've seen the numbers, a lot. Do you think Donald Trump at this point is a foregone conclusion?
I don't know, but look, if it is Donald Trump, we've beat him before and we'll beat him again.
I asked her about former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who often makes note of Biden's age, warning that if he is reelected, Harris could end up president.
She's made you a frequent target. She says she is really running against you. She's argued that you're a drag on the ticket. What do you say to her?
Listen, let's see what Iowa says to her.
Now, Harris has been busy crisscrossing the country, taking on a leading role on issues like abortion rights, but the campaign is also facing criticism for not being aggressive enough. Harris telling me they can't take anything for granted, saying they have to earn this re-election. David.
Mary Bruce live at the White House tonight. Mary, thank you. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is back home tonight after a hospital stay he kept secret for a time, even from President Biden. Austin was hospitalized on New Year's Day for complications from prostate cancer surgery. The president learned of his hospitalization and cancer diagnosis several days later. The Pentagon says Austin will work from home while he recovers. When we come back on this busy Monday night here in New York, the major news in the case of the accused Long Island serial killer, what could be a major turn here, and the deadly hot air balloon crash, 4 people killed, including a young nurse. Tonight, investigators combing through the wreckage of a deadly hot air balloon crash outside Phoenix. 4 people were killed, 1 person critically injured. Authorities say the balloon was carrying 13 people, including 8 skydivers. The skydivers jumped without incident, the balloon then crashing moments later. Authorities identifying the victims who were still on board, including Caitlin Bartram, a nurse from Indiana. Tonight, her family saying she was an avid adventurer, always taking care of others. Tonight in New York, a major development expected in the suspected serial killer case on Long Island. Sources now telling ABC News that Rex Heuermann is expected to be charged with the murder of a 4th woman now on Long Island when a grand jury indictment is unsealed tomorrow. He's already pleaded not guilty to 3 other murders. When we come back here, the new Miss America making history already, and this is really quite something tonight. To the Index, and tonight, the new Miss America making history. Madison Marsh of Colorado is the first active duty Air Force officer to wear the crown. She's a 2nd lieutenant and graduate student at the Harvard Kennedy School. When we come back here tonight on this day of service, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and what he said just 4 days before his death.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Vivgard and Vivgard Hytrulo.
Finally tonight here, a day of service in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Across the country tonight, a nation honoring the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In Washington, D.C., families, children, this boy wiping away the snow at the Martin Luther King Memorial. Students from Watkins Elementary School taking turns reading Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. Dr. King delivered that speech 61 years ago. And outside Indianapolis, the Hendricks County Alliance for Diversity, collecting care kits to give to the homeless. Dr. Martin Luther King often spoke of the gift of service, and in his final Sunday sermon at the Washington National Cathedral, he said this.
It may well be that we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and the violent actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence and indifference of the good people who sit around and say, wait on time.
His warning about silence, about indifference.
However dark it is, however deep the angry feelings are and the violent explosions are, I can still sing, we shall overcome. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
His words as powerful as ever. I'll see you on ABC News Live for the Iowa caucuses and during the football game, too. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.